doing some a little bit background research of you, you're the co-founder of DEB, which stands for Diverse Executive Boards. You're working with future-proofing the board work in Sweden through education, recruitment, business development. And from what looked into is also you have a background in communication and organizational development, which gives you a strong mix of strategic background into understanding the culture that comes with starting a board committee. Given that you've been a founder in this space for a while, you educate a lot of women as well, getting into boardrooms and board seats. Before we go into any questions, I always want to give the person I'm talking to their time to introduce themselves. So, Sarah, if someone is listening to this, how would you introduce yourself to them?
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be here. So happy that you invited me, Sarah. And yeah, I usually start to present myself as a creative doer. I have a very big need of getting things done, but also in a creative way. So I usually have a lot of projects where I have time and energy to put my energy, my creative soul into it, and that also come into my businesses. But I started out as a management consultant, and through there I did a lot of projects. So a lot of project management within organizational development and IT projects. And from there, I went to a tech scale up. So I was on the journey building a company from 6 people to 72, and as a business developer, and that was a very excited job. So as you know, in a startup, you can do everything. So I started off with a lot of sales, and then I started to create an organizational structure and build team and culture and how we work with all those kinds of things. And then back to sales again to look into the value proposition and how we do sales and sales processes and stuff like that. So yeah, I've been to a lot of different areas within building a business. And then I also met my co-founders for now it's almost 7 years ago. It was just a coincidence, actually. We were at a breakfast. So I met one of the co-founders there, and she was like, I get a lot of board opportunities, but I can't take all of them. So I need people to pass them on to. And I was like, what? Who are you? You're like in the same age as me. Isn't it just like old management McKinsey consultants that sit in boards, you know? And then from there, we took a lunch and started to talk about this need of bringing more perspectives into the boardrooms, find other types of expertise and people to fill the board seats with. And from that, we was just, okay, we need to do something about it. So we just brought in Emily as well. That was a dear colleague to Hannah. And there we was starting off this amazing journey together to bring into more perspectives into boardrooms.
How was your background when you were growing up? Like, how did you get into sales and then entrepreneurship? Were your parents into this, or what drew you to any of these?
No, actually, I'm my whole family. No one has studied after what do you call it in English? Gymnasiet in Sweden. So, and everyone is like a carpenter or works in schools or like, yeah, other types of areas. And I went to technical gymnasiet. Was it? Say it again, Sarah.
Yeah, I think it's a technisk or high school in
High
a
school, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
technical high school. I went to the CEO and she was like, yeah, I think you should study more, Sarah. You have perfect grades and you really like studying. I was like, yeah, maybe I should. And I went home to my father, who was like, oh my God, yeah, okay. So what do we do now? Where
Yeah.
should we go? And how do we do with like apartments? And, so it was a lot of figuring out, but they have always been very supportive and helped me out, actually. So I haven't had no clue where I was going to the university to study. I just found in this catalog article that a girl has written about this. I went to Linköping and studied industrial engineering and management. there was someone written about herself and what she wanted to do, and I was like, I want to be like her. So it was
Yes.
this small little window when I saw an article in this catalog. So it's so, yeah, and that's why I went there. And now everything just rolled
Yeah.
on. And it's very funny with my family today. They still don't really understand what I'm doing, but every time they're like, yeah, you do something great. I can't even say what you're doing to my friends, but it's very sweet.
That's so normal. It's like, "What do you do?" Is I don't know. So you're trying to explain it in a simple term and let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they try, like, what do you do a regular day? I was like, yeah, I meet a lot of people, sit by my computer,
Aw.
typing emails and have meetings. They're like, yeah, okay,
But the thing
sounds
is,
good.
from what I'm hearing is they've been very supportive, so that's what counts, right?
Yes, yes, they have
Yeah.
been very, very supportive.
And you're not from are you from Stockholm?
No, so I'm from northern part of Uppland. It's called
Okay.
Östhammar.
Okay. So and then you moved to Stockholm for your journey.
To Linköping and then to Stockholm. And now I live
Okay.
in Uppsala.
Okay. That's
So
interesting.
I've been raised on the countryside, and now I moved to the countryside with my kids as well. So I wanted them to grow up there. So we
That's
bought an
amazing.
old farm, actually.
Wow.
Yes.
How is that transition? Because going from countryside, city, and then countryside, I can imagine your kids love it.
Yeah, they love it. They love it. Just playing around all day, and I love gardening, so they helping out, digging in the soil and just get really, really dirty. Yeah, but it's amazing.
Eh,
I love the contrast with still work in Stockholm, so the contrast to go in the city and being on the countryside. It's
Yeah,
perfect for me.
for those who don't know, Uppsala is like about 40 to 1 hour away from Stockholm, so it's,
Yes, exactly.
yeah, so it's like living in London, anywhere in London,
Yes,
basically.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so you met your co-founders, but before that, you studied and you found this article and you were like, "Okay, this is someone I wanna inspired inspired by this person, this article you found." You studied and then you went through sales, and then somewhere along that journey you met your co-founders. Tell me about that journey from, starting a company and founding, like leaving sales and everything else behind and saying, "Okay, this is what I want to get into."
Yeah, so when I was a management consultant, I started to feel like I want to be in a startup or a small company, building something, a product from the beginning. That's why I joined the tech scale-up company, and that was an amazing journey. And actually, before I joined the tech company, we started Deb. So we started to build Deb during the time I was there. So I was kind of building two companies, but it was nice. And with the Hannah and Emily, when we met, we started to like figuring out. So the purpose was to bring more perspectives into the boardroom. So we had a very clear problem that we wanted to solve, and then we were starting designing the service or the product that we have today. It's a 1-year program where we have board education. We have some deep dives to like not only give them what they really need to be a board member, but we also wanted to give them something so they become a very good board member. So we go through like how to use data in the boardroom and how can we use AI in the boardroom and what do you really need to know about the business economics and all those kinds of things. And then we also coach all the participants to find their first board position. So it's been, and that was for our like first idea, and it's been with us from the beginning. And for sure, we have developed the deep dives. We have some extra deep dives, and we have a take that we always need to develop. So we always update the education and all the deep dives and everything. So it's always new material, but the concept has been the same since we started. And that's always been the core. And we started out with like our closest network. Actually, we didn't do that much of marketing or anything. We just take our closest ones and tried it out, and the ones in the program then, they really loved it, and also we found a lot of tractions from the companies that there actually was a need to support these people into the boardroom. And we started out, I talk about bringing more perspectives into the boardroom, but we started out with women, but now we talk about perspectives and diversity in a wider term. So today we also have males in the program. Yeah.
That's something I noticed because that is true. When I was looking into your website before, it was a lot women focused, which is nothing wrong with that. But now I notice that you're more diversifying your outlook on the whole board perspective. When did that started to change?
Yeah, in the beginning, we were a lot about we want to bring diversity into the
Yeah.
boardrooms, but we also noticed that we don't want to be like a charity case that you need to take in women because you need to. We believe that women are very good to have in the boardroom and you will get better results. And that's also proven. So we don't want to just give you diversity to the boardroom. We want to give you the best board members. Started to talk more about giving the best board competences and just bringing up a wider perspectives rather than diversity itself. So we wanted to support the value rather than the diversity.
Yeah. It
So
makes
we
sense.
changed. Yeah. No, so we just opened it up, and also we didn't want to be the ones saying what diversity was. So now in our application process, you need to define what your underrepresented perspective is and why you should take part of the program. And then we have an application process based on that. So the people applying for the program say itself why they should be in the program and taking into the boardrooms.
That's very nice to hear because then you actually know what you're tailoring to when you're coming in or what you're missing in your organization.
Yeah.
And then you can actually look into as a company, these are the things I need to tailor for when I'm applying for an education such as yours. Uh, so okay, so if I understood it correctly, you have two legs. One is the educational part at DEB. The other one is connecting people to companies, right? If they want to get a board room seat.
Yes. Yeah. So when we started out, it was a lot about bringing more perspectives and
Yeah.
diversity into boardrooms, and we still talk a lot about that. But now we talk about creating better board work in Sweden overall. So we have this program for sure, and we also have other courses. So we have developed our offers. So we have a 2-day course, we have a chair course, we have a board course for owners. So we have uh, build on a lot of different offers and courses as well. And then on the board side, we work a lot towards owners and nomination committees to broaden our network, but we also have offers to them. We have election processes that we can support in. We also can do a strategy day or workshops within AI and board work. So we have a lot of offers there as well. And for sure, board recruitment. So we do recruitments to all types of boards actually. So it's from small startups to the bigger companies that has a huge revenue. So it differs a lot based on their needs, actually. So it's not one typical case, actually. So we get a, a big, wide search. So it differs a lot. I can't say a typical one.
Okay. Okay, let's go into this. Now, if I want to as a founder, and I've been in touch with you before regarding this, so you are perfect. As a founder, what are the biggest or I would say what are the things I need to think about when I look into hiring someone to be on my board?
Yeah, it depends on what stage you're in. So when you put up a company, you need to set up a board, but usually you just set up a paper board or not the board that you usually work so much with. You just do it because you need to, you know. You pick some friends, and so we worked a lot actually to remove that requirement. We don't think you need the board in the beginning because it just doesn't support you in the way it should be.
Okay.
So our belief is that you could create to start working with the board. It depends on where you are with the product, but when you're starting to feel like this, I know my product, I want to go start to the market, or I know the problem, and you need to be somewhere to start evolving this professional board work. But maybe start getting some turnaround and leveling up. So we usually say that in the beginning you can start with an advisory board, maybe just to try your ideas or thoughts out, and then also to get to know the people that you want to have in your board. Maybe try them out in an advisory board in the beginning before you get married, and have them take your responsibility in your company. There's a lot of responsibility to sit in the board, so
Yeah.
it's like a business marriage. You sit there
Yeah.
sharing responsibility and building something together, not your life but the company.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, as a founder, when I was in my running my company, I did hear people say, "Okay, you need an advisory board, or you just need a board." For those who don't know, what is the difference between just advisory board and having the full-on board? The one that bigger corporations have. What is the difference?
Advisory board it's a board where you can sit and give advice and talk about stuff, but they don't have the legally obligations that a board has.
Okay. So it just differs in formality of what they can do and they
Yeah,
cannot do.
responsibility. But usually you get a lot of more, the people in the board usually put a lots of more effort into your company as well. So because
Yeah.
they're responsible for it in a way.
Have you seen mistakes happening if I don't have a board and I just set up my company? What would go wrong if I don't have a board?
It depends. You can create a perfect company that succeeds great on its own without a board, for sure.
Yeah.
But with the board, you have another level of a strategic organ that can support you in your journey. They can look in the world around you, see trends, and support you. They will work with the strategy for you. They will ask you the right type of questions to make sure that you have or know what you need to know. So they support you, and also it can be very lonely, running a company as well as a founder or in the management team. Maybe you need someone to, talk to and bounce ideas with and talk about the future and the heavy and the fun stuff. And we usually say that it's a big difference from a controlling board and a strategic board or a working board. So we say that the board should focus maybe 20% on looking into data and what you have done in the company, and maybe 80% supporting you in your future strategic journey. So it's a very important supporting group that wants to support and help you further on and develop the company.
Okay. And what if I want to come to you and I say, okay, uh, I want to put together a board. What are the first things you would advise me to do in the beginning?
If you don't have one,
If I don't have one, I just started out and I'm getting some traction to my company and I need to put together the board for formality case, but also because I need the advisory aspect of it, the strategic advice.
yeah, I should say start out with an advisory board that
Yeah.
you believe in. And from that, look out for or look into a share person that you want to bring in as share. So that's your first important role, actually. And then it depends a lot also on who's the founders, so or the owners of the company. If you still are the majority owner, you can do this by yourself, but otherwise you should do it with, if you have investment capital or something. It's the owners who choose the board. So look into that, like what structures do you have and how can you build a board from there. But start with a good share. And we usually say it's good to have an external share in your board. So it's not an owner or a founder. So
Okay.
use this external share that has a new perspective and can, because otherwise it gets messy in the board if you have a lot of different hats. You are the CEO, you are a chairperson, you also are a owner, And it's difficult to separate the different forums and the different hats you have in the companies. Like this is the owner forum, this is the board meetings, and this is the management meetings. So if you have an external chair, that person can help you separate the different types of forums and where you do what kinds of things and stuff like that. And that person can also support you in putting together a good board to find out what competences do you need. And usually the board should support you in your strategy for the coming like 3 to 5 years. So make sure that you have the competences you need to take your steps the following 3 years.
Does it matter if I have all my board members from same country? For example, if I want to get someone from a different country, does that matter if from legal aspect in Sweden?
There are different legal basics, yeah, in the different countries, but
Okay.
it doesn't matter. So you can absolutely have someone from another country, but that person needs to take responsibility to know the Swedish laws if the company is in Sweden. But also it's difficult in Sweden to get someone abroad because the fees, what do you in English?
Equity?
Equity in
Yeah.
Sweden is very, very low compared to other countries. So it's usually difficult because of that.
So we don't give that much equity to, you mean from a company, we don't give equity out, so we cannot attract board members.
Yeah, it's difficult to attract international board members because the equity is so low, or the salary.
Oh, that's interesting. Is it different in the States, I can imagine?
Yeah, they get a lot more, but they also have a lot more responsibility.
Okay. Okay. That
They
makes
have
sense.
also a bit of different setup in the board. They don't work with the board in the way we do. In Sweden, we have a pretty different structure for how we want to do the board work. Best practice.
Yeah. What are the common mistakes you see us founders make when we're putting together a board?
I would say that you have a lot of, yeah, you're mixing up these hats. You have the founders in the management teams, in the board, and maybe you say want to bring in one more board member and you just take in one person that should represent, everything else that's not in the company. So you should, if you want to take in someone that's not an owner or outside the company, maybe take in 2 or 3 so they're not alone, and just making sure that you're not mixing these different hats and organizing up your governance in the right way.
Okay. So when you say different hats, you're referring to having different types of maybe background,
Roles.
education, roles, experience, right?
No, I mean hats in the company. So if you're the
Oh, okay.
CEO, you are the chair and you are owner. Then you have 3 hats in the company, 3
You mean
different
like that?
seats.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's also can be messy if you're an owner and just a strategy person in the company. Maybe you skip the board meeting and go straight into the operations team and just do things because you're the owner, but that gets very messy
Yeah.
in the structures. So look into your governance and how you should handle like decisions and so on.
Yeah. Okay. So structure in the beginning and understanding what hats or roles I need to play. One thing that I was looking into before was when you bring in someone in your board external, one of the mistakes that they do is they take on the managerial role when they shouldn't be taking that. Have you seen any of these happening?
As a board member, you're not like responsible for one type of area. As a board member, everyone has responsibility for the whole company. So even if you're in the board and represent like sales or marketing, you cannot only take responsibility or speak for sales and marketing. You need to understand all the aspects of the
Mm,
company within the board. So that's very important that you understand all the parts and ask the right questions. You don't need to be experts in all the parts, but you need to understand that you are responsible for it and ask the right questions to make sure that you know everything is working. So you can't like sit on one area in the boardroom. But then we talk a lot about also a problem in startups is that the board can become very operational, and that's very difficult to handle. Like it should be very strategic, work with strategies, and don't be so involved in the operations. But in small companies, usually it's very different to not be involved in the operations because they need a lot of support. Maybe they bring in board members that has a lot of different competences that they need support within. The board can also work operationally in different settings, but then you need to also have a clear structure for that. What do I need from the board member as a board member? And if they want to work a lot operationally as well, maybe they should get a salary or something else for that, just so that you're very clear about the roles and your needs for that board member as well.
Does that happen in small companies where they take more of an operational role than a strategic role?
It can get messy, but I think you should prefer to have it more separate, but it can be difficult
When you
to
say,
do
can
it
you
in this area.
describe messy, please?
Yeah, but if you take in someone for like their connection within a field or the industry that you're in, then it's very easy for that board member to just get into the work, trying to connect, and then you get involved in all this operational work to get the meetings done and everything. And you want to support the companies with all your connections, right? Because that's why you're there. And for sure you should do that, but you shouldn't be too involved in the sales meeting, and following up and everything. So just to make sure, like, what should the board member do and what should then the operational team take on to work with?
Yeah. What
Do you
I'm
follow?
hearing is, yeah, what I'm hearing is be very clear on the roles, because it keeps on coming back to not defining what everybody's role needs to be, because I do understand sometimes it can get a little bit too complex, especially if you're starting out and you bring in another founder to sit on your board, and that founder probably feels a little bit more, they need to give you advice on things that probably it has nothing to do with their role, at least. So that goes back to the transparency and being very clear. You mentioned that in the beginning, you had a lot of women coming, or you were tailoring to a lot of women. How has that changed now? Because there was a time, if you know this better than me, where there was a lot of talks about getting women in boardrooms, that we don't have enough women. Is that changing?
We still need more women in the boardroom. So the numbers have not been better.
Really?
So we still need a lot of women taking the seat. Pretty good in the listed environment because they
Yeah.
have higher requirements, but in the smaller companies and private sector, we need to work on that.
And what are the reasons that they feel? Is it because women aren't looking for their roles, or don't we have women uh, in those spaces? Or
I think there's a lot of different thoughts about this, but I believe first it's from the recruitment process. So a lot of companies don't have like a good election committee and a good process for recruiting board members. So you just pick in someone like close by. I have a nice friend that knows this. And then usually you want to have board expertise. So you need to pick someone that has been in a board, and it's difficult to take the first step then into becoming a board member. If everyone wants
Hmm.
someone with board experience, then it's very difficult to increase the number of women that are in the board network. But we firmly believe that everyone in the boardroom don't need to be an expert in board work, because you're there with your competence and want to support the company in their matters. So if you have 2 or 3 people that know board work, you don't need another board work expert. You need someone that knows the areas you're working with. Yeah. But yeah, so I think it's a problem with the recruitment process for sure.
Okay.
And the company should work with to look for people outside their own networks.
Yeah, because I think at the beginning you want to bring in people that you know, and sometimes friends and family aren't the best option. So yeah. But now going back to, as you mentioned earlier as well, AI, how to use AI in the board. Now AI is, what is it, 2, 3 years old, being public. What are the differences that you're seeing with companies using AI in boardrooms?
So you can, as AI in the boardroom, you can talk about it in a lot of different areas. For sure, you can talk about it in the way that how the board work with AI itself, and there you can do a lot. The board has a big responsibility at looking into what's happening in the world, and you can use it a lot around that. Look into this market research on different things, and so that has changed a lot. So it's very easy to find information about things. But then there's a lot of board tools that start using AI and improve like these basic processes within board work. But I think the biggest question within AI and board work is how AI will impact the company. So it's very difficult for boards today to understand like how much should we bet on this
Mm.
AI topic, and how should we handle AI in our company? Will our organization be able to handle this whole AI revolution? Do we have the right people, competence? It's putting everything on the edge. Also because we don't know how fast it will go, when can we use AI for different types of things? It's very difficult, and it happens stuff all the time. So yeah, they really need to be on their toes and have a very clear and open mindset about how to handling the AI stuff.
Have you noticed if people are panicking about this in the boards? Like,
I'm not sure panicking is the right word, but for sure there's a lot of boards that are worried about how to handling this. Like,
really?
yeah, because a lot of companies, their whole like ideas are turning upside down. Will our business idea still be there? And we have this in our, what will we do with the organization, all the people? So there's a lot of questions on how to do things. And also I think a lot of companies is also like not looking into it and just ignoring it, and that's a problem as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, why aren't they on board, or they're just ignoring it because maybe it's easier to just let it be than tackling
Yeah,
it.
yeah. But most of the companies is absolutely looking into it. But I think it's difficult to understand where AI will end up and how
Mm,
it will affect both the organization, how you will work, but also the products itself.
yeah.
And for sure, it depends a lot on what area you're in.
You mentioned before in one of your articles that being clear and having a purpose in meetings when you go into the boards. What happens when people go in without having any strategic directions and they're just setting, because these board meetings don't happen that often. What advice do you give there?
Yeah, in the theory, you should work up this strategic wheel that you have, this yearly wheel with the different topics you have for each meeting and plan for that. But also in the reality, you have a lot of crises you need to handle, and then you need to pick it up on the first topic as the first topic on the agenda. You can't like talk about all these other things when you have something important happening, but usually you have an extra meeting for that as well. Have a well planned yearly wheel on what subjects you want to talk about, and have the organization prepare like material stuff like that.
So for a lot of founders, I think this is something that they don't think about. You as a CEO need to come in with what you need to talk about, what is on the agenda.
Usually it's a collaboration with the chair and the CEO to prepare for the meeting, and it also depends on what the topic are. So if you're supposed to set the budget, maybe, then you
Yeah.
need to have the budget in place to make sure you can send it out to the board beforehand and you can take a decision during the meeting. So you should use the meetings for taking decision, make sure that all the materials is handed out before so they can ask questions and everything and prepare. So you don't actually are supposed to go through everything during the meeting, because then you take all the time from the meeting just presenting. During the meeting, you should focus on discussion and taking decisions. So that's an example. But if you have like a meeting focusing on our customers, who are they and what do they want and values, and maybe you have not only the CEO, you have invited some other from the management team to present, and you have looked into something special, someone in the board has prepared something, so it can depend a lot.
Mm.
It's a collaboration, but usually the chair is responsible to make sure that everything for the meeting is prepared and set up.
You mentioned transparency somewhere I read. Why do you think leaders have a hard time to be transparent?
Yeah, sometimes the management team maybe are not completely honest to the
Yeah,
board, just because it should look good. And it can also be a dilemma if, you have a VC backing you up and you have the owner sitting in the board, they're looking, so you do what you're like promising them to do, and you
yeah,
just want to show good numbers. But that's a very, very bad way of doing it. You should be completely, completely honest with the board, because otherwise you can't get the support you need and help. Because if you, and also the board are responsible, so they want to know if it's not going the way you want to. And I think they want to support you if it's not going the way you want to as well. So make sure that you are completely honest with the board. It's very important as well to build a tight relationship between the CEO and the chair.
yeah.
So they should not only meet during the board meetings. So we also usually say that you should have like a monthly letter from the CEO to the board to continuously know what's going on and what has been the most important things during the month. But also maybe the
Yeah,
chair and CEO
yeah,
should talk once a week just to get to know how you're doing. Is everything okay? Because it's also about the people running the business. If they're not doing well or are on the way to burnout, the share should know that as well, because that's a big, big risk for the company.
okay. So that's a expectation from the board having on the CEO. As a CEO, what expectations should I have from the board before getting into these meetings?
Yeah, so as a CEO, I think you should have in mind that the board is there to support you, not just look into what you have done. So make sure that you have like all the decisions you want to make, all the questions that you have, and just bring forward the obstacles that you have right now to make sure that they can support you and help you in that journey. They're not
Yeah,
there to just point at you. They're there to support you and ask you the right questions and make sure that you succeed, because the board has put you there for a reason. They believe in
yeah.
you, and so make sure that they can support you if you need to.
From what I'm hearing, this seems a space that is very complex. And for me, looking into it as a
It don't
founder,
need to be complex, but some people
really,
make it complex.
it
In the
sounds
theory, it's
complex.
pretty straightforward, but it's usually a lot of dilemmas, and you have the different roles, and
Yeah,
usually when you talk about the governance itself, you usually think, yeah, it's facts and it's the law, and it's
yeah,
straightforward, but it's also a lot of feelings from owners, and it's a lot of dilemmas, and you need to take care of people in it as
yeah.
well. So it can get messy, absolutely.
I mean, you're 100% correct that it's about people at the end of the day. It's on numbers and statistics. But I think what I mean by that it's complex because I think there's a formality that comes into it that makes it a little bit like, how do we want to handle this? And I remember in the early days, one of my advisors at Almi suggested, this is why I got in touch with you, suggested that I have an advisory board. And my thought process was, I'm at a very, very early stage. I just started out. That wasn't even priority for me. But from what I'm hearing is that the board is supposed to give you the strategic advice that you're lacking. So put together a team that brings in competence that you don't have. Maybe I should have done that in the early days for my company.
Also, if you're very early stage, maybe you need one coach or one advisor that supports you in the beginning to get the help you need. Maybe
Yeah.
don't put up a full board with 8 people, because that you need to handle and work around. make sure that you have a business, you're ready to scale, and you feel like, yeah, now it's time. I know what I'm doing. I'm bringing in the board to make sure I succeed with this.
When does a board member says, "Okay, this isn't something I want to be a part of," at what stage do you let go of people? Is that something that they decide or you decide as a CEO?
For the board,
Yeah.
as a CEO, you have nothing to say about the board. It's the owner deciding who's in the board, and the board decides
Yeah.
who's the CEO. So as a CEO, you have nothing to say regarding who is in the board.
As a founder.
As a founder, you have, yeah, because
Yeah.
you're the owner. But
Because I was
you have nothing to say
I was considering myself
because
founder and slash CEO. That's
yes,
why.
exactly. So that's the messy parts with the hat.
Okay.
So the structure is that the owners choose the board and the board picks the CEO.
Yeah.
So the messy thing with startups is that the CEO thinks that she or he picks the board because it's the CEO, but that's not correct. It's the owners. So it's the other way around. So the most
That's
important part for the board is recruiting the CEO.
okay. Now we come to the messy part because I was referring to me being founder CEO. You were referring to founders and then the CEO. And these are the different roles that you're talking
Yes,
about. Got it.
yes.
Got it. Okay. And that's where the messy thing happens when the CEO tries to meddle in and say who should be part of that strategic board.
Yeah,
Got
but it's an if the, if the CEO is the majority owner,
it.
they have the right to do it as well. But if you just say CEO, it
Mm.
depends on who that CEO is. So it's more correct to say that the owners pick the board and the board pick the CEO, and then the different hats you have can
Yeah.
make it messy.
Okay, if now I'm sure you have your own board committee. How did you guys going about?
We're still using the advisory board actually because we're still pretty
Okay,
small, but
yeah.
we're about to set up a board soon.
And how long have you had that advisory board for?
I think it's 2.5 years now, so soon 3. So we really like our advisory board.
Okay.
And also we have a small board that we
Yeah,
work. So we have a chair that we love, and she's the best. So she has supported us a lot during our years. So she's like, yeah, or primary board. But then we also have the advisory board. That's a
yeah.
bigger group that we talk with to like pitch ideas or get new insights and just get an outside perspective of what we're doing.
As you move on, putting together how are you looking into recruiting your board members?
Yeah, I think we need to find people that not think like we do.
Yeah.
So it's important for us to find more perspectives for sure.
Mm.
We haven't kickstarted that process really yet, but for us, as I said, new perspectives will be very, very interesting. But also I think we're about to set our upcoming strategy for the following 2 years, and I think that will matter a lot as well. Like what path do we want to take? Do we want to add another offer to our customers, or do we want to go into a new country, maybe? And I think that depends also on what we want to go, what type of competences we want in the boardroom.
How do people get into becoming board members in Sweden? What are the old way or traditional path? Is it just me asking you come become a board member of my company?
Yeah, there is a lot of different companies, or a lot, but we call them colleagues in the industry, not competitors. But there's a lot of companies that doing board educations as well.
Yeah,
So and like Styrelseakademin has done it for a very
yeah.
long time and many years, but there are some of them. But if you want to become a board member, yeah, for sure, it's a good start to take an education. Just also to make sure that you know your responsibilities and also
Mm.
to kickstart your networking because still a lot of board positions is recruited by networking. So you need to start talking with people that maybe are in the board sphere or know someone, start like creating your also board CV, because we believe that it differs a lot from your operational CV,
Okay.
because you need to highlight different types of things, and also go to events, mingle. It's a lot about networking, actually, and also make sure that you look into different platforms, networks. You can become members to different communities, as ours,
As yours, yeah.
as ours.
That's something I didn't hear because I went to Stilers Academy and they never mentioned, or maybe they did and I missed it, the two types of CVs. Can you describe the board?
Actually, it's something that I think we're ones who started it.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but not many people have it actually. But we believe that when you go into a board, you are there to present your strategic perspectives to stuff, and also present like, I've taken this or been part of taking this company from this to that, and I've been responsible for a project on this amount, or you need to present a lot of like numbers and results and your strategic contribution to that, and
Okay.
also highlight what your core competence are in a strategic level that you can support the board with. So it's not going through like all your different projects. So it's more how you can support that company in a strategic level kind of sense. So we have a template for it that we standardize and coach all of our program participants in filling out and stuff like that. And we also like we have an extended network with people that want to join or us in our recruitment processes that we also usually send our template for. So if someone is interested in that, they can reach out and I can make sure they get it.
How do you see the future of your space moving forward?
Yeah, we have a very niche customer group.
Yeah.
So we and also our company is based out of like purpose driven and values from our side. So we haven't built our company to make sure that we get like a unicorn or something like that. We want to make a difference. So for us, it's more important to make sure that we get more perspective into boardrooms than just scaling actually. And yeah, we have a pretty niche offer. So our best way to scale should be to take on more countries, maybe.
When you say more countries, is more education in those countries?
Yeah, yeah. But our concept is pretty unique. Even though there is board educations,
Yeah.
we have the board program that is pretty unique, and you can't see it in that many countries.
Oh, that makes sense.
And also, if we look into our competitors, they usually have this board education, but they don't have our board program that we are offering.
Yeah. Now, I have three questions usually before we go into wrapping things up, but this is more tailored towards you and your experiences. If you could go back in time before you started your journey as entrepreneur, what advice would you give yourself?
I come from the management consultant side of it. So when you are a management consultant, you create a lot of slides and you do a lot of strategy processes here and
Yeah.
there, and everything is very like aligned and well prepared. But in the startup world, it's just do it. Yeah, we have a strategy, but you don't need to create all the slides, just write a sentence here in Slack, and then we can go for it. It's not really that way. We have slides as well, but
Yeah.
it was a very big mindset for me, going from these large processes, and you need to like draw everything up and what steps do we need to take and exactly what workshops, and everything. In the startup world or as a founder, it's just more about like, okay, we have this, we need to take it to the market. Just call someone, try sell and get to learn everything. And you need to adapt and just meet people. Both customers and the people within your field, just meet and talk and develop like everything at the same time. It sounds messy, but it gets very fast and you get to know a lot of different things. And I think it's very difficult to build something on your own. You need to use all the knowledge that's out there. That's also why it's great to have advisors or advisory boards and people that support you in any kind of way, actually. Just a mentor or someone that is on the same journey as you, just supporting each other in different types of questions. So make sure to get into that process faster. So it took some time for me to like change my mindset around it, but maybe I was learned in one school and I pick I pick a lot of great things with me. I'm not saying it's a bad school. It works very very well for that area, but I can't apply that into the
Yeah.
to my startup career. So advice for myself would be just to skip all those processes and start working. Yeah.
Get right to it.
Yeah, get right to it.
Because I can imagine in consulting, you have a lot of structures you have to follow.
Yes.
And then you get
Yes.
thrown into the founder world. It's like, you need to make your own right now.
Yes. Yes.
No one is teaching you anything.
But it's a nice, and then people say, do you don't need structures and processes and strategies? But yeah, for sure. But you just talk about it and then you go, try it out and develop it during you go or during your journey.
But the thing is also, everything in the consulting world is also shifting up and down with AI and, COVID, and nothing is staying the same. So they're having a different type of panic right now. So we're good.
Very good. Exactly.
What's something you believe now that you didn't believe 5 years ago?
If you should say 6 years ago, I have this belief that the boardroom was filled with McKinsey consultants, elderly men, but now I know that it's a place for different kinds of competences and people. For sure, you need to have a great profile with a great strategic background that you can support a company within, but you don't necessarily need to be an older guy in a suit from a big corporate company.
And that's a really nice thing to know, because that means that your background does have a value if you have been in any business or any strategic position.
Yeah, we talk a lot about role models. For us, it's very important to make sure that everyone has a role model for someone that represents their perspectives within decision-making positions.
Mm.
And I think for when we started out, if you Googled board member, you got a lot of guys in suits. But
Yep.
today, when you Google board members, I think you get a picture of or co-founder Hannah, So it's a lot of different pictures today than it was back in the days. And I also think that reflects what we have been working on for so long, just talking about like who should be in the boardroom, and make sure that we have other types of role models within board work.
Yeah. I think it's also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's also important to, as someone that is going into these positions, be very mindful of what you're getting into, because I can imagine a lot of people think it sounds very fancy to be part of a boardroom, a board member. But sometimes it's okay to say, this isn't for me. That's also a strategic choice that you make, because by being in a boardroom and not bringing any valuable outcome, I think then it's good to say, okay, this isn't for me, or this isn't a position I want to be part of.
Absolutely. And a lot of people think that I just sit in a board. It has been you say it like that
Mm,
or a lot of people say it like that, but we usually say that you work in a board. You don't sit there and
exactly.
just go to meetings. So actually, maybe it sounds very fancy, but it actually is a lot of work behind it. And for smaller companies, it's usually a lot of work to make it work, and you don't get that much money out of it either. So it
Mm,
sounds fancy, but yeah, it depends. So you really need to make sure that you want to take also the risk of sitting in a board, but it's very, very, very fun. So
yeah.
if you think it's fun to build companies, I think the board room is something for you. You can support someone that builds something and make sure that you really believe in their value proposition or what they're doing and also are aligned with the values of the company and the
Exactly,
owners.
yeah. That's what I was thinking, if because I've gotten positions, but probably their company wasn't exactly where I wanted to put my effort in. It's okay to be mindful of that because actually you're helping them. Maybe they can bring in someone that is more involved, more involved in their business than I would have ever been. So I think that would be a good thing to think about. Another question is, what is the hardest lessons you learned and how did it change you? It doesn't have to be entrepreneurship, just anything.
Difficult questions. I'm a bit weird in this way because some things maybe
You're not weird, but okay, go on.
because I usually don't think that things are so like difficult. I just think that you just need to do it or collect information so that you can do it.
That's being entrepreneurial, but okay.
Exactly. Maybe that's because I'm, yeah, weird or just don't have a limits.
Yeah,
But for sure, some things are difficult. At least when we have grown our company, we have three founders, and we have now raised five children, and the sixth is coming. So during 6 years, we have also created six beautiful children. And building a company and taking care of your family and take care of yourself, that's maybe the most difficult part, to make sure that you take care of everything and take care of yourself, at least.
yeah,
It's difficult to prioritize when you have kids and husband, and I also have a farm, and the company, and your to-do list is just going on and on and on. But to
yeah,
make sure that you do your exercises and getting your sleep and everything, to make sure that you make good decisions
yeah,
and are good when you're working. I work a lot as an entrepreneur, but I also have a lot of I can do as I want to. So I can also go when I want to pick up my kids if I really need to, and I can spend or plan my day so I can be at home some days and be in the city some days. So I also have a lot of freedom to plan, but I also work a lot. But that's because I mostly think it's funny, or I love my job and work. But yeah, it's hard sometimes to manage it all. But I also something I've learned in getting children is what the hell did I do before I got children all the time? Like, what did I put all my time in? Because nowadays, when I'm without my children for 2 days, I'm like, oh my God, I can do all of this. I can work like a whole extra week. So, yeah, you get very effective
yeah,
and efficient. So, that's
100%.
something I learned. Yes, I talked to someone. She said, "Yeah, nowadays I only recruit like people that with small children because they really know what to prioritize when they work.
Ooh,
Because they
smart.
things that don't like matter, they're like, oh, this is rubbish. Need to focus on this because I need to deliver on everything." And yeah, they get good
Yeah.
on prioritizing.
Was that a woman who said that?
Yes.
I'm just making sure because it would require a woman to know that.
Yes.
But you mentioned one, I have to ask you this before I let you go. You mentioned having a role model, Sarah. Who's your role model?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I live by my life motto, and it's not a person, actually. It's
Yeah.
a color.
Really?
Yes, and it's yellow.
Okay.
So, I have another own company. It's called Live Yellow. So, usually in everything I do, I think, how can I make it a little bit more jello, a bit more creative or
Yeah.
happier or yeah, so I have a big theory about the color jello, and I that's type of my role model in my everyday life, actually.
Oh, that is so nice to hear that it's not a person for me. I mean, seriously, it's so nice.
It's my creative answer to your question.
I love it because people ask me that question as well. And honestly, I don't have one person that I look up to. For me, it can be books, it could be the art, it could be the design work. And I've never heard anybody say a color that is, their role model. I'm going to take that with me. Thank you so much. Is there
Thank you.
anything else, Sarah, that we haven't covered that you wish to talk about that I have missed on?
Yeah, maybe we've talked a lot about like board work. You have a lot of responsibilities. It can be messy and it's a lot
Yeah.
of like dilemmas and everything. But a very important part is that it's very fun
Yeah.
to just sit in boards and do all these strategies and plan the governance and everything. So I think it's fun with board work. I
Yeah.
just want to close with that.
I think it's definitely fun as long as also you have the right goals and the right people involved in it.
Yes, for sure.
But
And
thank you
welcome to
so
reach out.
much. Thank you so much for your time. This was fantastic. This will
Thanks
help
for
a lot.
inviting me.
Thank you, Sarah.